Death. Who decides when the end will come? Death is the inevitable end of life. Only today people have the wrong impression of the possibilities of modern medicine and think that high tech machines and modern means of intervention in human life can push death away. But what do they want, and who is the one who decides on the withdrawal from the treatment or from the machines of a patient who is neither in a coma nor brain dead, but is in a gray area, quote unquote, such as the permanent vegetative state, or does he suffer as long as his soul comes out? A large study showed that 70% of patients with life threatening conditions did not want to discuss this issue with their doctors at all. 70% of patients and their relatives would like any kind of intensive treatment, even if the end result would be to extend life for only 1 month, according to data from foreign studies presented by the director of intensive care unit of the Papayuriou Hospital, Dimitris Matamis, in Greece, at the conference of the Contemplation of Death Interdisciplinary Approaches. However, 61% of the patients or their relatives immediately accepted the advice of the attending physicians to withdraw intensive care, and after 1 week, this percentage increased to 90%, and only 5% of patients refused the withdrawal of intensive care unit until the end. Now, 83% and 87% of the public opinion in the US and Canada, respectively, 91% in Australia, believe that relatives together with doctors should share discussions about the withdrawal of intensive care. The same is supported by 73% of the European public opinion in the event that the patient is not able to decide for himself, while if he is sober, then only, that is, if he's not in a coma, then only 30% of the public opinion accepts that the patient decides for himself. Death is ugly, and we avoid seeing its ugliness. Today, people have a wrong impression about the possibilities of modern medicine. They think that intensive care with high-tech equipment can do everything and even postpone death indefinitely. And if we still imagine that there are no financial problems in the health systems, or there is no space problem and we fill the hospitals with intensive care beds, all sick people should die in the intensive care unit, intubated, catheterized, on mechanical respiratory support, on mechanical kidney function support, with mechanical support of cardiac function. Then the intensive care unit would be a hell where no one could die in peace. The question is, at the end of life, who should decide on how and when of a terminal patient's life, explains Mr. Matamis. The Greek legislation regarding medical decisions for the end of life provide that in cases of incurable terminal illnesses, the doctor must take care of alleviating psychosomatic pain even when all therapeutic options have been exhausted, offer him palliative treatment, sympathize with him until the end of his life, and see to it that he maintains his dignity until that point. Also, the doctor must know that the wish of the patient to die when he is in the final stage does not constitute a legal justification for actions aimed at hastening death. Physicians who consider it their duty to prevent death and not to preserve health and relieve pain experience the fact of death as a personal defeat, saying, "Our sick person died." Doctors who, for personal and neurotic reasons, refuse to accept the finitude of their existence and death are locked in a phobic battle with him, always insisting on one more therapeutic attempt. These practices are not aimed at prolonging life, but prolonging the dying process. Doctors, patients, and families need to understand medicine's inability to postpone death indefinitely. The aim of medical care should be to avoid prolonging and also shortening life beyond the right time, quote unquote. Determining the right time to prolong life is as complex and controversial as determining the time of death. Doctors who accept death as a logical end of life are able to perform their duty towards patients, adds Mr. Matavis. Social and ethical issues at the end of life In every age, man understands reality and ponders over the great issues of life according to the possibilities and means, knowledge, and general perceptions he has, as well as the particular situations he faces. Ethical and social issues of the end of life should be judged on the basis of logic, science, medical knowledge, and sympathy towards the suffering person, and the related ethical principles and values that are more widely accepted. Especially based on the principle of autonomy, they must be examined on a case-by-case basis and not through generalizations, points out the professor of theology department of AUTH, Yanis Petru, referring to socio-ethical issues of the end of life and human freedom. Mr. Petru understands that the issues regarding the end of life and euthanasia have been created because of the modern means of intervention in human life available to modern medicine. One's claim to be allowed to die does not harm anyone else, but such a claim is not easily made. It's the result of an unbearable life due to some long and painful illness, which is sure to lead to his death. Now, in cases where the terminally ill patient has a possibility to express his will, then after thorough information, his will must be taken into account and his life must not be artificially prolonged. In the cases, of course, where he's unable to express his will, the reason for the relevant decision rests with the attending physician, who must decide based on the benefit and dignity of the patient in consultation with his relatives according to the medical code of ethics, as Mr. Petru. And this I've translated from a Greek article. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Finally, support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.